And now, live from Palm Springs, California, your host, Leo Zagamy.
Ladies and gentlemen, your host today has a dark entrance into the land of the unknown, where today we're gonna find the one and only godfather of conspiracy theorists, Jordan Maxwell himself. We are about to connect with him. In the meantime, Jordan is trying to connect, technically speaking, through Colin Rivers, who is, as you can see at the moment, chatting with him, instructing him on how to connect, because Jordan, of course, at times doesn't really have a grasp on this new StreamYard technology, but we are indoctrinating him. So when they are ready, of course, we will bring them in. Welcome, everybody.
It's talking. Yeah.
It was kind of like zombie 70s now. Okay, guys, I'm very glad to announce today the participation of a superstar of the conspiracy realm. Without him, of course, we will not have had David Icke, we will not have had Alex Jones, we will not have had Leo Zagamy probably, and all this came from an idea of wanting to really expose for the first time outside of the realm of secret societies a language of symbols of secrets, history that goes back thousands of years. And all this, of course, arrives to where we are now. We have the honor of having with us the one and only Jordan Maxwell. Jordan, welcome.
Well, thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
And I'm glad to see you, and always to see you in a good shape and strong. But we are, of course, in the midst of a crisis. And I wanted to show you something that, of course, gives a little bit the idea of what we are dealing with today. This is what I'm showing now on the screen. The official HR 6666 COVID-19 testing, reaching and contacting everyone trace act.
Now, I think they added one too many sixes. It should be just 666.
But Jordan, for many years, people like you, of course, have been an inspiration to all of us younger guys who have followed in your footsteps. How does it feel to be living this sudden change?
It's
of
incredible.
Everything in front of us in 2020, things that you just hypothetically discussed many years ago now are coming into fruition.
I never thought I would ever see this happen. I thought I would be gone before it would happen. But as it turns out, no, it's happening right now, and I'm still here. I've been talking about what's happening right now. I've been talking about it for 60 years. And it's very difficult for me to believe that I am still here and now it's happening. And now I'm seeing the collapse of what I think is going to be ultimately the collapse of civilization on the earth. And I think we're going to be seeing it in September and October of this year. We're going to see the complete collapse of civilization.
Hold your horses, Jordan.
I think that Jordan actually is really opening up the show to, of course, what we are in a direction that we need to follow, because Jordan, I think, envisioned all this, but probably at a later date. So we wanted to surprise Jordan. We wanted you to stay with us for this start of the apocalypse. So,
oh my God! We started strong, man. Now we got to finish strong. Hang on, I got Uncle Donald. He wants to say something. Hello, everyone.
And yes, together we will make
the apocalypse again.
Great again.
We make the apocalypse great again, and I want to show you, both of you, a great image of that comes today from California. Is an image that gives us hope, because the people of California are rebelling against Newsom in a way. and they're sharing the way they want the future by acting this way. This is today on the beaches of California.
Wow.
They're just cruising, Leo.
It's the guts and it's the glory. 100 stripes, 100 stories. It's the pledge of allegiance on the 4th of July. It's them handwritten letters from home. It's them sleepless nights alone. It's his newborn baby he left with his wife. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, lay down his life. Mr. Red, White, and Blue.
And some people ask me, why did you go and live in California? Because I wanted to see the renaissance of this great state that is fighting back the oppression.
The West is the best.
So what do you think, Jordan, of these images?
Wow, where was this? Where was that film? Where was that?
It looks like Santa Monica,
Actually, I think Northern California, yes?
San Francisco.
Pismo Beach. Yes.
Pismo Beach.
Yes.
I know where that is. I've been there many times I've been to Pismo Beach many times.
Because you used to be a Californian, Jordan. So what do you think of these Californians who are suddenly saying no to this oppression?
Yeah, I'm surprised that we would have people who actually would stand up and say no, because Americans have been led to believe that whatever they're told, that's what they need to do. And you find out how corrupt this government really is, and who's really behind the military establishment in America and what's really going on. And you had better wake up and find out the government is not your friend. And stuff that's going on is being run by organized crime. The organized criminal syndicates of New York and Chicago are behind the U.S. government. They're using the U.S. government to get their way. What they want done, they want to make more money and they want to have more power, and it's all organized crime. Mm-hmm. And they're using the government to force us to do things that they want us to do. And that's what I'm watching. Americans need to wake up and find out how this stuff really works. It's quite a story. It's really an incredible story.
Now, of course, you are an expert of symbols. You are an expert of ancient history. We know that there have been many prophecies during the ages from various religions talking about this moment in time that is manifesting now. What are your ideas regarding this?
If you go back, let's see. I had a document I wanted to read to you.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And in the meantime, I want to say we have Colin Rivas, who is a Spanish author who has written various books on the subjects pertaining, of course, the show, including the Illuminati. Colin Rivas is somebody I know for almost 20 years, and he's been a pest for almost 20 years. Imagine that.
Yeah, I'm here. He sent me the check. I got the check. We hit the check, man.
You know what Colin Rivas did with the check? He sent it to the Trump fund for his campaign. Incredible.
Of course. I don't want any money from the government.
I mean, that's...
But I wanted to invest it in something good.
So Colin Rivas, guys, has given the stimulus check to the Trump campaign. I must say, I haven't done that. I have to admit, I actually have brought the check and brought it to the bank. I mean...
And I spent it on some pasta. Some fettuccine.
but
you need to feed your children, Leo, of course.
That, Jordan, with your stimulus check? Jordan has invested in some ancient books.
Yeah, for sure. He went to the store, man, and he bought all the foil paper, I tell you.
He's into the toilet paper? Jordan.
Foil paper.
Okay. So, Jordan, what are you presenting us today?
There's so many different documents that I have that tells you so many interesting things about what's going on. I've talked with people on the inside. I know basically we're being played for fools. I don't believe there is a pandemic. I think it was misspelled. It's not P-A-N, pandemic. It's P-L-A-N, a plandemic.
Like
And
that
well
film,
planned.
like the title of that film that has been now censored from YouTube, Plandemic.
Yeah.
Please continue, sir.
It's Jacques Vallée. Are you aware of his name?
Sure. We actually talked about him yesterday. We had Donald Schmidt on our show, and we talked about him.
So
Well,
now
Jacques
we're going
Vallée-
from virus to alien researchers, right?
Right. That's right. Jacques Vallée wrote a book many years ago called Wonders in the Sky.
Excellent book.
And it was called Wonders in the Sky, where Jacques Vallée tells us that in the year 1347 BC, Pharaoh Akhenaten was walking along the Nile River when he looked up and saw a silver disc over his head, a flying saucer. And he said, Jacques Vallée wrote that Pharaoh Akhenaten heard a voice come out of the silver disc and talk to him. And it told him that he was supposed to go back as Pharaoh and found a new city that would start a whole new political, religious over the whole earth. It would be a whole brand new religious governmental system over the whole earth. And it was called, and he was told that the city should be called El Akhenaten, and that the symbol for that new world government, Jacques Vallée said that Pharaoh was told the symbol for that new world government that is going to take over the whole earth from the satellite, from the UFO, told the Pharaoh that symbol will be a sunrise over a mountain range. And today, that is exactly the symbol that is used all over the earth today. All over the world, all governments use the symbol of a sunrise over a mountain range. That's what Pharaoh was told by the inhabitants of the UFO. That he was told, go back and start a whole new political, religious movement around the world. And your city will be called Akhenaten. And and so today we still have Akhenaten worship, which is a symbol of the sun rising over the mountains, which means all governmental agencies, the FBI, the CIA, the governments, all the governments of the world, the police departments, fire departments, sheriff's department, all kinds of legal law enforcement agencies all over the world use the same identical symbol Pharaoh said that he was given from the extraterrestrials. They told him, use the symbol of a sun rising over a mountain range. Well, today that's what's being used everywhere. All over the world, look at the official badges and official symbols for the governmental arrangements around the world, and they all have a sunrise over the mountain range. And so that symbol was called the sun disk symbol. And what is interesting is that the sun disk represented the sun god in Egypt. And in Egypt, the sun god was called the Aton, A-T-O-N. Aton was the name of the sun god of Egypt. And today, the Jews of the world have led America and have led the Christians into the worship of the Aton. And today we're told that in Judaism, you cannot use the name of God. God's name is too holy. But you can use, if you want to talk about the Jewish God, the God of the Hebrews, you can use the word tetragrammaton. Tetragrammaton is a symbol for the name of the God of the Hebrews. In every synagogue on the earth, no matter where you go in the world, every synagogue in the world has on their altar a sunrise. Somehow they have a sunrise. You'll see the sun with the smokes, and inside the sunrise will be 4 Hebrew letters. And that symbol symbolizes the name of God to the Hebrews. And that symbol with the sunrise and the 4 letters is called a tetragrammaton. And so today the rabbis will tell you tetragrammaton is the name of the Hebrew God. It's tetra is Latin.
4.
Tetra is 4. Gram, Gramm, gram is a letter like A, B, C, and D. So tetragram is 4 letters. Well, that's what it is, 4 Hebrew letters inside the sun. And so the name of the God in Hebrews is tetragrammaton, A-T-O-N, tetragrammaton, tetragrammaton.
Now,
So the Hebrew God is actually the sun god of Egypt.
The rabbis in the last few months have really pointed out on the fact we are living an exceptional time in history, and that this was probably the last Passover before the arrival of their Messiah, which is, of course, the first arrival for the Jews, but it is the second coming for the Christians. What's your idea of this messianic era manifesting right now, Jordan?
Yeah. And as what was really interesting to me is that the symbol for the tetragram, the Aton was the sun god of Egypt. And so the Hebrews are telling you that their God is the sun god of Egypt, Aton. And the symbol for Aton in Israel today is a swastika, the same swastika that Adolf Hitler used. And there's a very, very dark and deep connection between Judaism and Germany. Germany and Judaism are really working together.
And there is also a connection, as you know, between the SS and the Jesuits. So where we put all these groups?
I think we fit it all together because you're right. The Jesuits are working to bring together a new world order based on the Aton, the sun worship.
Which, of course, is represented also by the obelisk in St. Peter's Square. So there at the center of their Catholic worship.
And the best way to understand this is to ask yourself a question. Who owns the sun? That thing that comes up in the morning that brings light into the world and causes us to be alive. Who owns the sun? Well,
now, Bill
obviously,
Gates seems to want to cover the sun, though. He's playing God these days, as you know. He's pushing for the vaccines. He wants to make our body into a cryptocurrency deposit. He wants to do all kinds of things, and he wants to also block partially the sun because he says he wants to save us from global warming. What's your idea?
Well, my point is that who owns the sun? Well, obviously nobody on the earth can say they own the sun. But if you are religiously inclined or philosophically inclined, you could say that God owns the sun. I mean, I could see how somebody would say the earth and all of the universe belongs to God. Well, then God owns the sun. We don't own the sun. So who owns the sun? Well, you say God owns the sun. Therefore, in Germany, the word in Germany for the sun is S-O-N, not S-U-N. But Christians go to church on S-U-N day. They go on Sunday to church. And so they're worshiping the sun, S-U-N. And so, but as I said, the Germans do not spell S-U-N. They spell it S-O-N. Mm-hmm. So therefore, it's God's Son, the light of the world. And Jesus is said to be the light of the world. And he is God's Son. I am saying that the concept, the idea of the Messiah is the sun that comes up every morning. And we say that the sun is God's Son, is your risen Savior. Why? Because the sun is your risen Savior. Why? Because it comes up every morning. And when it comes up, it brings light into your world. It warms you so that we have warm weather. We could grow our plants. We could grow
So what's your
food.
idea, Jordan, about the Gospel of St. John, the Apocalypse, of course, the Apocalypse, the book of Revelation, and everything that John had revealed in the island of Patmos by this angel, these future scenarios, are they realistic? What's happening with the mark of the beast? Because that's really reflecting what Bill Gates is doing.
Well, if you go to the book of Revelation and go to the very last page of the book of Revelation, the last page in the Bible on the book of Revelation is the Revelation chapter 22 is the last chapter. And the last chapter is 22, I think it's 22:16, where Jesus said, Jesus, I am Lucifer. That's not me saying that. Jesus said that. Go back and read it. It's on the last page of the Bible where Jesus said, I am Jesus, I am Lucifer.
That's a little bit controversial. Probably some translations would say one thing, some others would say another thing. Of course, the morning star has been interpreted at times being, of course, both Lucifer or Jesus, but you are saying that he is actually claiming
I'm saying that Jesus is Lucifer because he is the light of the world. And Lucifer
is Lucifer, but is not Satan. So in that case, the Gnostics, who have always said that in the end of times Lucifer will come back to save the show, maybe are right. Is that what you're claiming here?
I'm saying that Jesus said, I am Lucifer. Why is he saying that? Because Lucifer is a Latin word which means a light bringer, someone who brings a light. If you're in the dark in a room, somewhere in a room dark, and somebody brings in a flashlight or a candle, we say that that person is Lucifer because he's bringing light into your world. Well, that's what we're told Jesus did. He brought light. He brought the light into the world and enlightened people's minds and enlightened your heart. So he was the one who brought the light to us. Well, anyone who brings light into a situation is called in Latin Lucifer. And so therefore, Jesus said, Jesus, I am Lucifer. Why? Because I am bringing light into the world. We say that Jesus
is a light bearer, but in this case, if you say Lucifer in this way, then we have to reconnect it, of course, with the way Madame Blavatsky was presenting Lucifer to the world, which became, though, in a way twisted and then manipulated into the Lucistrust that gave birth to the very foundation of this ideology that pervades the United Nations. Now, the United Nations seems to be really the home of the Antichrist these days, though.
Oh, yeah. The United Nations was planned to be the Antichrist. It was set up by people who knew what they were doing. They were setting it up to take over the entire world for the Prince of Darkness. And that's why today the world all over the earth is in the dark. And it's about time somebody turns on the light and shows what the United Nations really is. There was a book written many, many years ago explaining who set up the United Nations, where the money came from, and what the symbols mean.
Which book was this, Jordan? Which book was this?
It was called, it's on my website.
Remember, there was a book that talked about the symbolism within the temple that is found within the United Nations. And I remember that, of course, that symbolism was very particular. Have you ever studied that also?
I'm trying to remember the name of the book. It was just a paperback book, but it was filled with all the information: who set up the United Nations, where the money came from, and why they did it. And how they did it, why and how they set up the United Nations.
And now, in the last 10 years, they have been bought out by China. China is basically buying their their space within the new world order to become gradually the leading nation. They want to build the top AI nation in the world by 2030, and that will coincide also with Agenda 2030 of the United Nations. What
You're
is
right
about artificial intelligence, Jordan?
I think that's exactly right. China is going to be the instrument that's going to show the world how the Antichrist is going to operate. They have a credit system which, based on your how you live, you will be given credits by the way you live, what you read, what you eat.
Credit score, yes.
Yeah, it's called the credit system. It's going to be an incredible world. Yeah.
But check this out, guys.
That book was called None Dare Call It Treason.
Right.
None Dare Call It Treason by a guy named Starmer, Stormer. Last name was Starmer, John Starmer, I think it was. None Dare Call It Treason. It's an incredible book telling you exactly who set the United Nations up, who paid for it, and how it was put together to control the whole world. And of course,
the land where the main building we have in New York is built was donated by the Rockefeller family, which with the Rockefeller Foundation are at the leading, they are also leading the social with Bill Gates, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and with the Jesuits in the Vatican. And so it seems like this whole operation is well coordinated. Will we be able to oppose the microchipping, Jordan?
Well, the point being is that the Roman Empire is still in control today. America has become the new Roman Empire. And if you go back to Rome, you have something called the Holy Father. The Pope is the Holy Father. Why is he a Holy Father? Because he speaks for God. He's a Godfather. You understand?
He is, as they would say in Italy, il padrino.
Yeah, completely. So he is a Godfather. He speaks for God. He's a Holy Father.
Now,
that's why.
What do you guys think about talking about microchipping? Just not to leave it aside. Benjamin Netanyahu proposes mark of the beast, calls for all children to be microchipped first.
Yeah, that is actually something that has upset a lot of rabbis in the last week or so. I have received a lot of emails from people in Israel because it seems like Netanyahu is really betraying his Jewish Orthodoxy following by doing something that is antithetical even to the Jewish faith, putting a microchip in the body of a child, so when the child gets near to an adult, it will warn you of their presence. I think that's pretty evil, Jordan, don't you think?
Oh, tremendous. No doubt about it. It's in your face. It's obvious. But I'm not surprised at anything Netanyahu does. He does not surprise me, because I know who he really is, and I know who put him into office. There was a man that was a personal friend of mine. He told me, I put Netanyahu into office. I can take him out anytime I want. I'm the one put him there. I can take him out. So I know, I've been told all about Netanyahu. I know who he really is, where he came from, and what he's actually doing. And he's playing a very, very crafty game. He's deceiving a lot of people, and a lot of people are looking at him to represent.
Jordan, you know that guy called the late Barry Kamish, who was a Jewish researcher into these matters, who said some things similar to what you are stating now. I mean, Barry Kamish was an old friend of mine. Unfortunately, he's not with us any longer, but not all the people in Israel agree with what Netanyahu wants to do. So that's the great thing. And also the great thing is that a lot of rabbis are openly criticizing. So the same rabbis are also increasingly talking about this last Passover, this Easter, having been really a turning point in history. 2020, Jordan, is a date which reflects in two numbers, two 20s. It has in itself a significance. You, of course, more than others can tell us about what really 2020 means in the eyes of the people who follow occult philosophy.
Well, understand this, that Rome rules America. The Holy Father is the absolute power in America. Whatever he says, that's what America does. Because America is the new Roman Empire. And New York, where when Caesar moved into Britannia, he had all of Europe under the empire. When he moved into Britannia, he set up his government. Caesar set up his government in Britannia in a city called York, England. That was a center for Caesar's power in Britannia, in Britain. And today we have a city back east called New York. And New York is called the Empire State because it represents the Holy Roman Empire. And that's why it's called the Empire State. And Caesar wanted to take over the whole world. Well, he's finally done it. Rome has finally taken over the entire world for Caesar. It's called the United Nations, and it's in the Empire State called New York. And so New York is the home for the Roman Empire. In York, England, no, New York. And the United Nations is New York, the new Roman Empire in America, looked over and seen over by the Pope, and he controls the United Nations. All the nations of the world are under the Godfather.
Now, Jordan, earlier in the show, you told me that you thought that you will never leave these events. Do you think they are going toward, I mean, they are following a timeline or not here? Because 2020 was always said to be a very particular year.
Yes. I will tell you, I think what's going on today, I'll tell you what I think is happening today. I think that what started in March of this year, March being spring, I think that this whole virus thing and the shutting down of the United States of America, shutting it down, is part of a spring ritual, a ritual for the coming of spring. Because in the ancient Hebrew tradition, spring was a very, very powerful, magical time in which the world was being redesigned. When the sun comes back in spring, all life begins to breathe again, all life begins to grow again. And it was a magical time for the whole earth in the spring. So there were rituals, there were blood rituals, there were wars, and all kinds of strange secret societies that would be doing things on the earth in the spring. And that's why I think that this whole disease thing started in the spring. I think it is a ritual that's been prepared for the United States, which represents the Roman Empire.
But I mean, it afflicted a lot Italy, out of all places. And I have done this kind of research for years. And last year I pointed out on the fact that Italy was welcoming in the Colosseum at the end of September, October, Moloch, the statue of the bearer of plagues. And I said, I warned actually in one of my books that I have here in volume 4, I said, if we go by the 7 years, the first 7 years of this Pope, by March, we will have something really strong that is going to be triggered, because it coincides also with the 7 years of Pope Francis being installed, the first Jesuit Pope in history.
Incredible. Yep.
Yeah. And then, of course, this means for us great changes. How are we going to be affected in the next few months? Is there
going to be affected horribly in September and October of this year? There's going to be a tremendous experience that the whole world is going to have to go through. It's going to begin in September and October. And whatever it is, it's going to be very, very bad. A lot of people think today that what is going on today with this virus is going to be okay. It'll all work out and it'll all get back to being normal. No, it's not going to get back to being normal. It started in the spring and it's going to continue to get worse and worse each day until we hit the last week in September and the first week in October. And you're going to see in September and you're going to see in September and October a horrible, terrible tragedy is going to hit the world. It's going to be like a 9/11 for New York, but it's going to be so big it's going to affect the whole earth. Everybody on the earth.
What kind of tragedy?
I'm not sure, but it's going to be a very serious problem. We're going to either some kind of a major war or some kind of a major catastrophe is going to hit the world of mankind in September and October. And it's going to be very, very, very serious. And here's what I am telling you. I know this is going to happen. And I want you to remember I told you that in October, you're going to see a tremendous horrible tragedy happen to the world. I don't know what it's going to be, but a year and a half later, the world will finally get back to being what we've always lived. It'll all be over by a year and a half after October, but that's going to be in the 2022 because it's going to be a year from this October, a year and a half more that we're going to go through some kind of a terrible tragedy. And it's going to be so bad, it's going to affect the whole earth. And then when we come out of it, a year and a half later, we're going to be totally digitized, like Bitcoin.
So now we go back to the artificial intelligence subject, which of course is
predominant. I think your credit cards, your bank account, anything to do with commerce and money is going to be digitized. And that.
What about the war with China, Jordan?
Say it again.
War with China. What's your idea about the dragon of the apocalypse? Of course, this country that is very powerful, also with a millenary culture in secret societies and in symbolism, as you know.
Yeah, I know. I'm not sure what's going to happen with China. I'm not really sure what's going to happen with China. I know that China is in very serious trouble. They're in economic trouble. They're in very serious trouble. And I believe that the divine presence in the universe that men have called God, I think God is going to deal with the enemies of the human race. And it's going to be an incredible display of power from the heavens over China and over the whole earth. And I'm telling you, I just know there's going to be some kind of a tragedy is going to hit the world of mankind in September and October of this year. And it will be...
Is that connected to your research in astrotheology, Jordan?
Yes, it has something to do with astrotheology, yes. Okay. It's a very, very interesting discussion. I mean, I could tell you a lot of things, but it's not necessary right now. But what I'm saying, it does have to do with the astrological understanding of our particular place in our universe, in the universe that we live in.
Now, could it be because Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, they share some astrological features, like Hillary being a Scorpio, Donald being Gemini, Mars influence, Jordan?
I think you're going to have to say that again because
it was too fast.
No,
I'm not hearing it.
Yeah, I was just asking you about the two signs, of course, of the two antagonists, Hillary Clinton and Trump. Trump Gemini and Hillary Clinton was each a Scorpio.
Scorpio, yeah, born in October, and both are influenced strongly by Mars, I think.
Yeah, well, In September, the last week in September, and the first week in October, the Earth itself, the whole planet, is going to go into the constellation of Scorpio.
Now,
Scorpio.
what did Manly P. Hall say about this age?
Oh, you'd be surprised what Manly P. Hall would say. You would be shocked to know what Manly P. Hall said.
Okay, well, we asked, of course, Jordan Maxwell, who was a disciple of the late Manly P. Hall and somebody who really knows things about Manly that nobody knows. So please illuminate us, Jordan.
I was a very close friend to Manly Hall. Manly P. Hall and I were very dear friends. I loved him. He was the most incredibly brilliant, intelligent man I have ever personally met in my life. He was extraordinarily well informed about the world we live in. He was a great and masterful teacher, and I knew him personally. And when he died, he left me in his will. He left all of his research documents to me in his will. And I was amazed when the university called me and said, Manly P. Hall has left you something in his will. And I said, what? What did he leave me? And they said, no, you come to the Manly P. Hall Research University and we'll give it to you. Come see us. And I drove from San Diego that day up to Los Angeles, and he had left me all of his research documents, all of his booklets, all of his journals, all of his handwritten, all of his journals, and all of his research. He left it all to me in his will. That's how close Manly Hall and I were, and I was shocked to see that.
What is the legacy of Manly P. Hall on, let's say, the New Age, for example, movement, or the people who today claim to study esotericism or write about esotericism?
Well, I can tell you what Manly P. Hall said in his booklet. It's on page 5 of the PRS Journal in the spring of 1981, 39 years ago, almost 40 years ago. Manly P. Hall on page 5 of the PRS Journal said this, quote, a great awakening in the fall of 2020. And he said, quote, the situation in this world will become very critical in September and October of 2020. A psychological revolution could result in a revelation concerning America's assignment with destiny. Only a major change in the prevailing policies can restore foreign confidence in the ability of the United States to cope with international emergencies. Celebrities and prominent public personalities in all fields will be open to criticism. So no matter who you are, if you've got a name in this world of being an important person, you're going to really be criticized because the people are going to wake up and find out what's really going on. And Manly P. Hall went on to say that, hold on, celebrities and prominent public personalities in all fields will be open to criticism, and it will be wise to live quietly and modestly, quiet and modest, because displays of wealth and exorbitant salaries could have a disastrous effect on the earth, which means the poor people of this world are going to wake up, he said, in the Great Awakening in the fall of 2020. And he said the situation will become critical in September and October. Why? Because a psychological revolution could result in the revelation concerning America's assignment with God, America's assignment with the divine. And so we're going to be looking at something that's going to happen that's going to cause people all over the world to wonder what's going to happen to America and to the human race. And Manly P. Hall said that some 39 years ago. He even marked down, he even said it would be in September and October of 2020. So I'm telling you, I know it's going to happen because of the astrological connections. When you understand how to read the stars the way Nostradamus did the stars reading, the reading of the stars. The reading of the stars will tell you, if you do it right, you will see that September and October of this year, the whole world is going to move into the constellation of Scorpio.
And we go back to Hillary Clinton being a Scorpio. Somebody on the board was saying that I didn't give you enough time to reply about Hillary Clinton being a Scorpio and Trump being a Gemini. So please elaborate further.
Yeah, so Scorpio, the whole Earth is going to be in the constellation of Scorpio and last of September, 1st of October. And Scorpio is deadly. It's a scorpion. It's deadly, and the god of Scorpio in September will be Mars. Mars is a god of war. Why? Because you take the M and Mars, turn it upside down, becomes W-A-R, war, not M-A-R, Mars. Mars is a god of war, which means God of war is Mars, and Mars is going to be in Scorpio. So there's going to be some kind of a war that's going to be deadly, like a scorpion on the earth. The whole earth is going to be involved in it. It may not be a world war, but it could be a world war. And whatever it is, it's going to be so big, it's going to be so horrendous that most people on the earth have never seen anything this bad in all of their life. And that's what I see coming. And it's going to last for a year and a half. And that's what bothers me, is the mere fact that it's going to begin in October and it's going to go for a year and a half, which means it will go to the next October.
Well, it seems here that the right candidate for this war is China with America. These are the candidates for the future war. It seems like it's inevitable.
Whatever, I don't know. I just know that there's going to be something
and
on
it's
the
incredible,
earth.
and thank you very much for sharing that, because this prophecy of Manly P. Hall was definitely accurate, probably, and we are seeing now the unfolding in front of our eyes, because you see the tensions are building with China. China has unleashed on this world a virus that they claim is still natural. What's your idea? Is this a natural virus, or of course a biological warfare?
It's biological warfare for sure. It's a planned epidemic. It's a planned epidemic. It's not.
Yes.
It's not a pandemic. It's a planned, P-L-A-N, pandemic. This has been known for a long time. China has been preparing for this for a long time, and it was America who first came up with this disease and then gave over $3 million to China to perfect it. And so this disease came from the U.S. and was developed and perfected in China, and we paid them.
The person who pushed for that 3.7 million grant to the Wuhan lab was actually a Jesuit student and professor, Dr. Fauci. Dr. Fauci, who now is in a self-described kind of quarantine that he has described as a different form of quarantine, because now this is a kind of a news that comes out in the last few hours. 11 bodyguards, 11 members of the Secret Service who are apparently have COVID-19 in the White House. and there is also others who are affected. What's your idea about all these people being affected by the CCP virus in the White House? Is it true? Is it not true? What's happening there?
I don't think it's true at all. I think it is an outright lie. That's what I believe.
And
I've heard all kinds of scientists talk about the fact that there is no pandemic. There is no pandemic. It's automatically a plandemic. It's been planned for a long time to scare the people of the whole world. It wants
they definitely overblown out of proportions the number,
right.
So they could get both financing, credibility, and especially tension, strategy of tension. Now, you know that the strategy of tension was almost born in Italy in the 70s.
I know.
And so we are seeing now Italy again in the same position. Even before the US, they were kind of put under this strict regiment with COVID-19, drones, control. I mean, you can't even go out of your house without having to write a declaration. It's probably second only to communist China. What's your idea about that, Jordan?
Well, the whole world, the entire earth is going communist. The whole earth is now going totally Soviet communist system. And that's where we are today in America. We are now under a communist government, a communist system. And the Marxist-Leninist Soviet communism has moved to America. And that's why the Democratic part of America hates Trump, because he is an American who's trying to save this country from a communist takeover. But the communists don't want to save America. They're trying to damn well destroy it. They've been trying for many years, since 1945, 46, after the war ended, and all during the 50s. The Soviet communist operation in Soviet Union was trying to get into America. And so finally they were able to come in, and the American government was being led by Marxist-Leninist Soviet communists during the 50s. And they allowed the communists to come in and be our professors in our universities. And
that happened. You, of course, were older than us and remember that. That happened with Nixon, really opened the doors with Kissinger for China to become this capitalist nation in a way. So they sent the first two people to become their emissaries were George Bush Sr. and Barbara.
That's right.
In Beijing in the early 70s, before he became the head of the CIA. It seems like this whole conspiracy was born in the Bohemian Grove in a summer night. I don't know.
Yeah, that's about right. There's been a lot of conspiratorial stuff going on in this country, and we're made to believe it's all silly nonsense, and it's just a conspiracy theorist, just a silly idea.
And now people are listening to us, Jordan.
Yeah, now they're listening because they know it's not silly. They're shutting this country down. The communists, Marxist-Leninists want this country dead.
At the same time, Jordan, they have silenced on YouTube David Icke for his statements. What do you think of the future of the internet when censorship is growing at such a fast pace?
I don't think they'll be able to shut the internet down, because the Illuminati masters and their leaders, the Illuminati masters, have got they have control, because they control money. They control the business of this world, the military industrial complex, the international banking. All banks do their banking through the internet. So to shut down the internet would be catastrophic for business. And so I don't think they'll shut it down, but they are going to take off the web people that know too much, that are trying to educate their fellow man to what's going on. I think the masters of this world are going to make sure anybody that knows something they're not supposed to know will be taken off the internet. You already see that happening.
Now, you remember, of course, when the Georgia Guidestones first appeared, you were probably one of the first people who talked about it. And so I want to ask you, do you think that the Georgia Guidestones are really directing us towards a possible future scenario?
Yes. And you know something very interesting about the Georgia Guidestone? I think very interesting is that the Georgia Guidestone said that it would be better to have on the earth a figure of about 500 million people instead of 7.5 billion people to feed and to provide fresh water and fresh food for 7.5 billion people. They need to get rid of 7.5 billion people and get it down to 500 million is what the Georgia Guidestone said would be the better number on the earth is 500 million. Well, interesting is that in the ancient Egyptian system, it was said by the ancient Egyptians that if you could go to the North Pole, go right directly to the North Pole itself, and you could shoot a laser, you could shoot a straight line down the earth and hit the South Pole. A pole through the earth going, that's why you got a North Pole and South Pole. The Egyptians said if you could shoot a straight pole down the North Pole and hit the South Pole, and you take that distance and divide it into 500 million units, we would call those 500 million units going through the earth, we call them inches. And so the 500 million comes back to 500 million inches between the North Pole and the South Pole. Now, when the French Grand Orient Temple Masons began to overthrow the French government in the French Revolution, Robespierre and Danton, two of the top Masonic leaders of the French Revolution, they said that if you're going to destroy France and the church, you need to destroy the Christian religion. And since the Christian religion was based on ancient Egypt and the 500 million inches through the earth, Robespierre said that you should have a whole new way of understanding the measurements of the earth. So what he said, you go for the North Pole and draw a line to the equator and take that measurement from the North Pole to the equator and double it from the equator to the South Pole, and then calculate how many inches that is, and that will give you what they call metrics. So the metric system is a French Grand Orient Temple Masonic order idea to overthrow Christianity that's based on the inch to foot, and you take 12 inches, and that's why Jesus has 12 apostles, the 12 brothers of Joseph, the 12 tribes of Israel, and the 12 apostles. Everything in the Bible is based on 12. Why? Because you take 12 inches and it becomes known as a ruler. And this is why the Messiah is the ruler of our world, because he has 12 followers, 12 inches.
Now, Jordan, I have just opened the phone lines in case somebody wants to ask you a question. I know we have at the moment a lot of people who are following us worldwide, both on Facebook, on YouTube, and everybody's enjoying very much the show. So I want to thank you again from our team here at the Leo Zagamy Show for participating to this event. And we have also Colin Rivers, who is always here helping out. I want to thank him also. This is our first phone call. Who are we talking with? Hello? 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 Well, the line for...
I was going to train everything, Leo. I'm here. The Illuminati didn't cut me off yet. I got special mics. Listen, Uncle Don has a message.
They say, is Donald Trump an intellectual? Trust me, I'm like a smart person.
Yeah, he's smart, man.
Well, he is, and actually, it might. Do you think it's true that with the heat of the summer, we will actually see at least a betterment in the situation with this virus? Jordan, just a second. Hello, who we have on the other line? Hello.
Hello.
Who I'm talking with?
My name is Sean.
Sean, it's a pleasure to have you on. Where are you calling from?
Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay, what's your question for our guest, Jordan Maxwell?
I just want to let Jordan know that that I love him for sure. I appreciate everything that he's doing. My question is, listening to a lot of his material, he talks about pre-incorporating America and being sovereign. And one of the things he mentions, the plus of being sovereign, is when you go shoot somebody in the middle of the street. Well, what is some other benefits of sovereignty that is absent in our culture and society today?
Please, Jordan.
Yeah, well, that's a very difficult, because I'm not really sure exactly what your question was. I'm having problem with my earphones over Skype.
He's actually asking you what's your view upon the sovereignty of the U.S., I think. Yeah, is that?
Sovereignty.
Yeah, the sovereignty.
What do I think of Christianity?
No, the sovereignty of the U.S.
Oh, that's a whole different story. There's a very big difference between the United States and the United States of America. Totally different. The United States of America is home office. The government for the United States of America is not in Washington, D.C. It is in Philadelphia. The Internal Revenue and the Federal Reserve and the Internal Revenue will tell you that if you want to deal with the United States of America that was founded by the Republic in 1776, if that's what you want to do is deal with that government, there's a phone number in Pennsylvania. You need to call that number, and that is the government for the United States of America. But if you are talking about the Federal Reserve and the Internal Revenue, they are privately owned corporations that are connected to a master corporation called the United States Corporation, incorporated in 1870. So there are two different kinds of government in America. There is the United States government, which is in Washington, D.C. It's a corporation. It's a company like General Electric, Exxon Oil, and the United States Corporation. But if you want to deal with the United States of America, that's in Philadelphia. And there's a phone number. The Federal Reserve will give you the phone number to call, and you will talk to a person who will tell you, yes, we represent the United States of America, and we have nothing to do with Washington, D.C. at all. We are a totally different operation. We go back to the 1776. We go back to 1789 with the founding of the United States of America. And today we have two different constitutions. One is the Constitution of the United States, and one is the Constitution for the United States. There's a big difference in court between for and of. And so we have two different constitutions. One's for the United States and one is of the United States of America. So there are two different constitutions. They look alike, they sound alike, but there are certain sentences that have been changed in the new Constitution. Certain sentences, you have to see it. And when you see the sentences have been changed to say something it doesn't say in the original, it's a Constitution for the corporation in Washington, D.C. that was incorporated in the 1870s. It's a privately owned company. It's called a municipal corporation, and it's privately owned. So that today, the United States, if you are a U.S. citizen, that means you are not an American. You are not an American if you are a U.S. citizen. That's what the law says.
Hello there.
So,
we have somebody else online now. Who are you and where are you calling from? Hello.
Hi, here is Eduardo Lopez. I'm from Mexico. It's a great honor to talk with Jordan Maxwell and Leo Zagamy.
Thank you.
People, person that give me a great inspiration to study in this kind of subject. I just want to know, I gotta ask for Jordan. Jordan, I have heard you that you talk about the September, October 2020 and about the book of Mary People. I would like to know the name of this book to search.
Okay, yes. Let me tell you, the book the book was not Manly Piol, but was Jacques Vallée. He was citing, and then he talked also about the prophecy given by Manly Piol. Was that in a specific book, Jordan?
Yes, it was. Yeah, that specific book for Manly P. Hall was the PRS Journal in the spring of 1981. Manly P. Hall used to put all of his research into little journals, and he gave me the whole collection when he passed away. It was left to me. But on the PRS Journal, spring 1981, page 5, there was an article, A Great Awakening in the Fall of 2020. And he said the situation will become critical in September and October of 2020.
Hello there. We have also another phone caller. As you see, Jordan, we're very popular today. Who are you? And where are you calling from?
Good day.
Hello there. What's your name?
Good day. I'm Lisa in Leadville.
And where are you calling from?
In Colorado, Leadville.
Okay, perfect. What's your question for Jordan?
Well, I'm very excited to see Jordan, hear Jordan today. I've been listening to a lot of his lectures, and he's on my list of people to call and get a real booking with him. So I want to make sure to get his correct website today. But my question for both of you regarding Freemasonry lineage, what is, and the mystical aspects that might carry forward in the DNA, can you speak to that at all?
Okay, Jordan, please.
You repeat the question for me again?
Can you repeat the question again? It was regarding Masonic lineage, I think.
That's correct. So for anyone who may have high-level Freemasonry parents, grandparents, but maybe we don't participate in Freemasonry, so to speak, but have an affinity for mystical aspects, is that something that is part of legacy?
Okay, I will answer to that. Please, you answer first, Jordan.
No, I would prefer to hear your answer.
Okay, so what happens is this. You are, of course, brought up in a family which has a library and probably inspired by a cultural background. Usually Freemasons are born in specific backgrounds. Of course, not all Freemasons are dedicated to Masonic culture. Some of them only follow Masonry as a social kind of club. And so they will not really be interested in all the occult power of sorts. But when it comes down to certain Masons, like, for example, Manly Piol, but also people who maybe go up to, they follow the various rites. So maybe they become a 33rd degree, they go up the ladder of the York Rite or other rites of Freemasonry. There is so many. They are like different universities of knowledge. Well, I would say that definitely, if you have this kind of inclination in your DNA, you will probably be attracted to the mystery schools in general. Then, of course, if you are a woman, it's a little bit more complicated to join Freemasonry. Having said that, there is a female Masonic body even here in California. There is mixed co-Masonry and Freemasonry. For those who want to study Freemasonry as a philosophy, a moral, of course, something that you can learn from. Well, it's a very different topic from Freemasonry as a power tool in the hands of evil people. Now, Jordan.
Yes. And I think the powers behind Freemasonry is the Vatican. I think ultimately the Vatican controls world Freemasonry all over the earth. And I think the group that is within the Vatican that has that power to control Freemasonry are the Jesuits.
And in
I
fact,
think
in my new book here, Jordan, I talk about continental Freemasonry having, and continental Freemasonry is French Freemasonry. You mentioned the Grand Orient of France, but also all forms of continental Freemasonry connected with France have this special room where you go before you become a Freemason, before you become an active apprentice. It's called, it's like a room where you are shown a skull, where you show some letters which are vitriol, which means visiting yourself interiorly, you will change yourself. Well, that kind of room was, which is more like a cave, it was actually inspired, and I talk about it in my latest book, by Ignazio Loyola experience in his cave when he wrote down his famous spiritual exercises. So I've kind of talked about it in my new book because apart from the fact that we don't have the same kind of waiting room, room of meditation, however you want, how you call it, Christy, because you have done it. My wife, for example, was initiated in London. Room of reflection.
Yeah.
And how many hours you were left in that room of reflection, Christy, when you
Three.
3 hours, 3 hours. Imagine she had a lot of patience, and nothing really happens, but it's really you interacting on your own with certain symbols and meditating before then joining the initiation. And
I think the very idea of 3 hours is highly, highly Masonic. 3 is very, very important to the world Freemasons. 3.
Yeah,
that's why you have 3 different religions: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. 3 religions based on a far more older religion, but it's been divided into 3. Today we have Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. All 3 are based on ancient India, ancient Hindu. And it goes back to the Brahmins, the priest of Brahmins, and Brahman. Of course, when you go back to the book of Revelation,
that the Jesuits, when they started their operations, they immediately sent some of them to the Brahmins, and they actually became Brahmins. They didn't.
That's exactly right. Yes.
Incredible.
That's exactly right. And today, that's who we have today. We have the Jesuits who are promoting the worship of Aton, A-T-O-N, the sun god of Egypt, and the Brahmins. And if you go back to the Old Testament, Abraham was supposedly the father of all 3 religions. They're called Abrahamic religion,
of course,
Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. But if you go back to the Bible, Abraham was not called Abraham. He was called Abram. And Abram became known as Abraham. So before Abraham, there was Abram. And so you take the Brahmins and put an A in front of it, it becomes Abraham. And in the Brahmin religion, the Brahmins would tell you that they were called God's chosen people. They were the only ones that had a special relationship with the Almighty God. Brahmins. And in the Brahmin religion, there was a goddess. The Brahmins had a goddess, and her name was...
Going a second, because here you give me inspiration for talking about, of course, the Kali Yuga, but also a particular god, Shiva. Shiva that is found in front of the CERN Institute, that we had that ritual in the middle of the night. And then we found Shiva in front of Tedros and the World Health Organization during a meeting with China and the World of the Belt Initiative, whatever.
And Shiva is a Jewish word. The Jews have the word Shiva. It's in their biblical background. Shiva is a term that the Hebrews use too. But what I was going to say is that the Brahmin priest, you take an A and put it in front of Brahman, it becomes Abraham. And so the Abrahman becomes Abraham. And in the Brahmin religion in India, they still today have a very, very special place for a mother goddess, like the Catholic Church has the Mary, the Mother of God, the Mother of God.
Now,
and
going into the realm of Jesus, because you mentioned the Mother of God, so we go into Jesus was said by some to have not died on the cross, but have moved at one point to Kashmir or having. What's your idea about Jesus as an historical figure? Because some conspiracy theories, like David Icke, are a little bit hostile to the very idea of Jesus, when instead you seem to be more inclined in believing in Jesus. And I can describe you at times as a Christian, but I don't know if that's correct. Sorry.
Well, I was going to say that the Brahmins have a female goddess, and her name, the goddess in the Brahmin religion, is called Sarah. Saraswati. Saraswati is a goddess in India, and the Brahmins respect Saraswati as a goddess. And so you have a Brahmin or a Brahmin, Abraham and Sarah. No, it's not Abraham and Sarah, it's a Brahmin and Saraswati. And so you take Christianity, Judaism, and Islam and go all the way back to Abraham and Egypt and India.
Okay, so you see like an origin for the Abrahamic religions that points really to the east here.
Yeah.
And that will make sense because, of course, the very birthplace of Abraham is already towards Asia. We are in Mesopotamia and in that. Okay, so what about the ancient city of Ur?
Ur?
Yes.
In summer.
That's where we get that's where we get our word urban development.
Okay, so it's
urban development comes from the city of Ur.
Okay.
Which is a Chaldean city. The Babylonians had a city called Ur, and it was very, very well established city. They had all kinds of modern as you can be, and that's where we get the word urban development.
Yeah, because the city seems to be very important for the Illuminati at a very early stage, and then it kind of stayed with them. And even in last century, we had a group of the Ur, which claimed to have been very important, powerful during fascism in Italy, made up of people like Julius Evola, Arturo Regini, and even Crowley at one point. The group of Ur was an esoteric group, and we can say a sort of form of Illuminati. Now, they were claiming to be inspired by Ur because it was like Heliopolis, some kind of like high priest city. Jordan?
We need to say that again.
You think that they were inspired by Ur because it had some kind of connection with the Illuminati priesthood?
Yeah, I think so. That's why today, as I said, when we are redeveloping an area, it's called urban development. It comes from that's the UR. Urban development comes from and UR.
Now, I wanted to ask you, Jordan, we have seen in the last few weeks popping up every now and then the figure of Elon Musk that you, of course, will have heard. He's the guy who runs Tesla. He has been involved in the early stages of PayPal. Now he says that he's working on interconnecting our brain with the artificial intelligence. And he claimed on the Alex Jones show on something that was then reported also by Alex, but it was originally said which show, I think it was with that famous guy he went on now.
Joe Rogan.
Joe Rogan, yes, Joe Rogan. He said that basically in 5 years to 10 years from now, we will not even need to talk anymore.
We humans on this earth are definitely being led in our destiny. Somebody is in control of the destiny of the whole human race. And I believe it is the Aton, A-T-O-N, or as the Jews would call it, tetragram Aton.
The Christians will say that I mean, this artificial intelligence starts to look like a sort of cyber Satan, that this mark of the beast starts to really look like what Bill Gates is proposing. If these prophecies are materializing, then, Jordan, we will see also the materialization of these prophetic figures that are announced, the Antichrist, the return of this Messiah. Are these figures about to materialize on the world stage or not for you?
Mm-hmm. I would not be surprised if that be the case. I think that very well might be. I think that the mark of the beast might very well be a triangle inside a circle, because you will find that symbol all over the earth. It is highly respected by all governments, all religions, all institutions, all over the earth. All kinds of institutions and governments and governmental agencies use a cross and a circle, the circle and a triangle. I mean, not a cross, but a circle and a triangle inside the circle. Sometimes it's a triangle with the circle inside the triangle. This is why when you go to public buildings all over the world, you will see the men's room is a triangle and a women's room is a circle. Okay. Why? Because the women's room circle on the women's room represents Stonehenge, the sacred circle, the magic circle. And the men's room has a triangle which represents the pyramid.
Well, could this be connected also to the fact that in magic, demons are evoked with a triangle and angels with a circle?
Yes, I think there is a connection between the symbol of the pyramid. The pyramid on the back of the $1 bill, that little triangle at the top with the eye, represents the Messiah in the Jewish tradition. The Jews, the rabbis, if they know what they're talking about, will tell you that the triangle on top of a pyramid on the back of the dollar bill represents the Messiah. And in Christianity, when you research that symbol, it will tell you that represents Jesus. Jesus is the eye in the triangle, and he is the Messiah. And so both the Old Testament and the New Testament both say the Messiah and Jesus is represented as a triangle on top of a pyramid. That's what the word means in Greek. It's a Greek word that we translate, we call it pyramidion. A pyramidion is a small triangle on top of a pyramid, and it's called a pyramidion. But the Greek word pyramidion means a Messiah eye, a triangle on top of a pyramid with the eye and the inside represents the Messiah in the Jewish tradition. So that represents the Jewish Messiah or Christian Messiah. That's why it's on the $1 bill.
Now, here in California, we had in the last few days a lot of people raising their eyebrows for a California shopper who went inside a supermarket with a KKK, basically using as a mask his KKK hood. Now, people forget, though, that the KKK originated from a democratic environment. Isn't that the case, Jordan?
Yeah, but remember, the word democratic is the same word that is used for all communist countries. If you go back to the beginning of the Soviet Union, it was called the People's Democratic Republic of the Soviet Union. Then you have the People's Democratic Republic of China, the People's Democratic Republic of North Korea, and it's called the People's Democratic Republic of Cuba. All communist countries use the term democratic. Democratic means from the Latin word demos. Demos is a mob. That's why when you have the mob and the streets overturning cars and burning buildings, we call it a demonstration because it's the example of democracy, a demos. Demos means mob in Latin. It means a mob, a drunken, crazy mob out in the street, burning cars, burning buildings, killing people is called a demonstration. And why? Because it's the democratic thing to do. It's the movement of the people. And so that's why today you have a democracy in all communist countries. And today in America, you have a Republican and a Democratic group. And the Democratic group, in my opinion, based on the actual words in the encyclopedia, means a communistic, Marxist-Leninist communistic system of government. The rule of the mob is a democratic republic. And that's why you have the People's Democratic Republic in the official term in all communist countries. So therefore, that should tell you something about what's going on in America. If you're a Democrat means you are a Soviet Marxist-Leninist communist who is devoted to overthrowing the American system of government and giving it to the poor. Let all the millions of people come from all over the world, come flooding into America, take everything, and we will give you everything you want. We give you free lunches, we give you free food, free rent, we'll buy your guns for you, we'll buy anything you need. If you need guns and rifles, we'll give it to you. Come on in, bring all your criminals, bring all your family, come on in, because
But
we
it
are
seems,
for the people.
Jordan, that these days they prefer the guns in the hands of the criminals, not of the common folk that might
The
be.
United States has provided the firearms for all communist countries, period. All firearms come from the United States.
Well,
And today in the Middle East, all firearms come from Israel. And there's a reason why Israel is called the state of Israel. Like the state of Alabama, the state of Florida, and the state of California, you have the state of Israel. I think Israel is an actual part of our federal enclave. Our federal government is including the state of Israel as one of our states. And that's why our federal government.
Out here on the board, friend for 20 people, Freedom Films, which we want to also say hi to because he's also your friend, I know, and he's a common friend of our chat. So he says this is a constitutional republic, not a democracy. So there is a difference here, and sometimes people kind of misunderstand the two things.
Yeah, well, as far as I'm concerned, there is no difference between democracy and world communism.
Well, but America is resisting the communism, and actually up until now, though you are right, Mao Zedong and his army were trained by the US. So we actually gave birth to the CCP, to the Chinese Communist Party. That's really sick if you think about it, because they became our worst nightmare.
About 45 to 50 years ago, my brother and I went down to the Los Angeles airport to pick up a friend who was coming in to Los Angeles. And as I drove in, there was almost no traffic, but there was a long line of about 12 to 15 black limos, stretched limos. They were all a long line of black limos, stretched limos. And I saw that. I thought that's very peculiar, seeing about 12 to 15 stretch limos. And so I slowed down and saw the license plate of the last one. The license plate said,
sorry to interrupt you, Jordan. We have a phone caller, probably the last one that we will allow today. Who am I talking with? And what's your question?
I'm Victor from Argentina.
Okay, welcome from Argentina, Vito. Okay, what's your question for Jordan?
Considering that the Pope is from this country, I wanted to ask,
yes,
what all of you think about the situation with the New World Order?
Okay, so basically, Jordan, he's asking how the Pope, the Argentinian Pope, relates to the New World Order.
Say that again.
How the Argentinian Pope, Pope Francis, relates to the New World Order.
Oh, that's an interesting question. Argentina is heavily involved in the international intrigue going on right now. It's a very interesting story about how
How
the
they
world.
actually helped the Nazis after the Second World War. And
That's right. That's what I was going to say. How the Nazis in the Second World War left out of Germany, and they all went basically to Argentina, except for the highest ranking scientists and physicists, and they came to America and went to work for our country, and they called their organization NASA, National Aeronautic and Space Administration. Was a Nazi operation which run by Nazi German doctors. So that's a very interesting story when you find out about Nazis and NASA. As a matter of fact, if you look in the dictionary, look up the word Nazi, N-A-S-I, not N-A-Z-I, N-A-S-I, Nazi. A Nazi is the highest ranking judge in the Supreme Court of Israel. The Supreme Court of Israel, the highest ranking judge, is referred to as a Nazi. Look it up in the dictionary, N-A-S-I. And it will tell you in the dictionary that an Anglo-Saxon spelling of N-A-S-I is correctly spelled N-A-Z-I. So the very word Nazi comes from a Jewish word for a president or a head of a governmental system, is a Nazi, N-A-S-I, or as the encyclopedia says, or better spelled N-A-Z-I.
now we seem to have the Colin disappeared. He actually appears only with Colin. Are you back? I kind of like. I think.
But I'm hearing some strange noises. I don't know where they come from. Some like
interference, but fortunately we're still on the air. I want to thank first of all Jordan for coming on today, because as usual he is like a living encyclopedia when it comes down to these subjects, and also I respect very much because he's been the godfather literally of conspiracy theorists, and without his work, we, as I said at the beginning of the show, people like me or Alex Jones would probably not be doing what we are doing. So
Leo, I want to especially thank you, and I appreciate your friendship and how nice you have been to me over the years, and I appreciate everything you do, and I want to thank you and my other host for having me on the show.
Colin Jordan is Colin here.
Yeah, actually, Colin has been a little bit silent today, listening there. I can kind of like been behind the trenches, preparing this show for us. And
for every one new regulation, two old regulations must be
eliminated. Exactly, Colin, at the moment. In which part of the world are you at the moment?
Say it again.
Portugal. I'm in Portugal now with the king of Portugal and Jordan's cousins here.
Well, but how is the situation there? I mean, is it like
in Portugal? It's under control.
The man you need to go on the web and listen to, his name is Peter Levenda.
He's a great author. I've read his
Levenda. Levenda. Go on the web and listen to a man called Peter Levenda.
Jordan,
I will tell you all about Argentina and its part in the new world order. That's what he talks about. He is a brilliant orator, and I know him, and I appreciate him and his work. Go on the web to YouTube and type in Peter Levenda, Levenda, Levenda.
I've actually read his book on Nazi symbology and stuff, and great stuff. I mean, I'm really a fan of it. I would like to have you both, you and him, on the show if possible.
I would love to do that.
I mean, let's work on that. That would be a great idea for a future show. I want to remind all our viewers that, of course, they can find your books and your work on your website. So please, a minute of shameless promotion for you, Jordan.
I appreciate it, and thank you. And my website, the correct website, there are different websites on the web that have my name that I don't own. My website is Jordan Maxwell Show. Always add the word SHOW, show. because that's my website, jordanmaxwellshow.com. That's my website. And then email me, and if you wish, email me, and I'll try and get back to you on Jordan Maxwell Show. And you can join my research website, which I have another website called Jordan Maxwell Research. And you go on jordanmaxwellshow.com, and you will see my research. And you can join my research society. You have to join it. And thank you again, Leo, for having me on.
Well, thank you, Jordan. Thank you, Colin.
Thank you, and Leo. I just want to say I got the new book out, UFOs and Aliens in Ancient Art. I actually have it down there to share if you want to share the screen, and it's out on Amazon and on my website also, colinrivers.com. And thank you everyone for coming on, and God bless everyone out there.
God bless you all. And of course, if they want to contribute, how they can contribute aside from the books? Do you have a donation button or a donation link to your site?
That's me or Jordan?
Both of you. Both Jordan, actually.
They just buy the books and that's fine.
That's great. Okay.
Okay.
If you want to
Bye-bye.
continue the Leo Zagamy show, you can continue with the donations. You can keep on buying the books. The latest one, actually, I would love to send this one to Jordan. So you better send me your address, Jordan, so I can send you a copy of my latest book. And all the best. And we speak soon, okay?
Thank you, and goodbye.
God bless you all.
Bye-bye, bye-bye.
I don't